welcome back to Leading Entrepreneurs of the World, our 2022 conference. We are now joined by Dr. Heidi Gardner. She's the author of Smarter Collaboration and a distinguished fellow at the Harvard Law School. And Dr. Gardner's topic today is Smarter Collaboration, Breaking Down Barriers and Transforming Work. Welcome, Dr. Gardner. Good morning. Thanks for joining us, and let me turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the warm introduction, and welcome to everyone who's joining us today. I'm joining you from Boston, where it's gorgeous and sunny, and long may it last. I am just as thrilled to be talking with you about this topic of smart collaboration and indeed smarter collaboration. These are concepts I have been working on for the better part of the last 2 decades, most of the time at Harvard Business School, where I was a professor, and now continuing on at Harvard Law School. So this is a topic that has been engaging audiences around the world for that amount of time. And we really want to dig in with you to understand how we can bring these principles and practices to make sure that you are getting the most out of the people that you encounter, whether they're inside your organization or in your broader ecosystem. So when we talk about smart collaboration, we are talking about narrow, increasingly specialized expertise as the way the world is working these days. So this is not my idea. Everyone from historians of science to Malcolm Gladwell are talking about specialization. Knowledge is changing so fast that if you want to be an expert in your domain, you have to go deep, 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 which means you inherently get narrower. While at the same time, the problems we face are anything except narrow. Do you know this acronym VUCA? Volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. It basically means that any problem worth your time and effort is probably multifaceted. Taking a look from multiple angles will help you understand how the system is connected with all the different pieces. That's the complexity. And that's why when you put these two trends together, they're crashing into each other. You need to be thinking about how you combine forces. How do you bring people who have different areas of expertise, different knowledge domains together to tackle more complex, sophisticated issues than any of you could do on your own? That's where smarter collaboration comes in. And we are absolutely clear that smarter collaboration is not more equals better. Right? We're going to come back to that in a little bit, because you probably are feeling incredibly stretched. And if what we're saying to you is, oh, you should always throw a team at every problem, forget about it. That is not smart. Smarter collaboration is truly intentional and deliberate, using a team exactly when and where and with the right people when it matters, and will produce the best kinds of outcomes. So just as a little thought experiment here, think about it for a minute. When is a recent example when you engaged in this kind of smarter collaboration to increase profitability or create value, innovate faster, drive some kind of operational excellence? If you think about a time when you had to bring in somebody who had complementary perspectives than you were engaging in smarter collaboration. Conversely, we're going to take a look at the times when sometimes, have you ever gotten an email, for example, a distribution list you're on, and you just click delete before you even glance at the contents? Yet that's not smarter collaboration, right? In too many organizations, project rosters just grow and grow and grow. And we want you to think about shrinking them so that you're only engaging in collaboration when you produce these kinds of outcomes. So one of the case studies we have in our book, it's a new book, I should have mentioned, it's coming out in November. It's available for pre-order now. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. Smarter Collaboration, full of case studies and data and evidence and how-tos. And one of the case studies is this, Ocean Explorer. If you haven't checked out their website, it's super cool. You have to check it out. And we love this case study because it is researchers and building this, enormous, the most sophisticated research vessel ever, but it's way beyond research. The idea is to bring people from lots of different disciplines together to conduct exploration of parts of the ocean where humans have never explored before, and then to team up with media, different kinds of specialists, to bring those insights to life, to you and me, the landlubbers. And here's an example. They teamed up with Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, WHOI for short, and a team from the BBC's Blue Planet. And with this multidisciplinary team, they tackled this really complex problem. How do you get into some of the undersea areas that humans have not explored before? So go on the website and check out what they were able to accomplish when they brought these very different domains together. And by participating, just watching in the videos of what they explored and found, you're going to be part of that collaboration, right? And you can get involved, and maybe it sparks you to think about how you're treating the planet, how you're engaging in the oceans. What could you do differently? This is what we can accomplish when we reach across boundaries, different kinds of silos, and get people from different domains, not just cooperating, but truly collaborating, bringing your unique points of view and experiences to do something you couldn't do on your own. Now, that's an example of what smart collaboration can accomplish. Here's some data behind it, because everything we do is supported by math and science and data and empirics. We measured the outcomes of cross-silo work to produce more holistic solutions. So we have examined this in professional service firms, like the big four accounting firms, or any accounting firm these days probably has their audit function, but also the consulting practice and due diligence and tax advisors. When those people team up, they can provide their clients better solutions, more forward thinking than if they were just tackling different bits of the business, each in their own silo. But we've measured those outcomes far beyond professional service firms, in financial services, in technology startups, in a whole range of biotech and healthcare arenas. And here's what we found again and again and again. This is just illustrative data, but it comes from a real source. We've disguised it. What we see is that when people work together to provide integrated solutions, they're drawing on different functions, domains, geographies from their company, the revenue that they produce, which is a proxy for the value they create, grows almost exponentially. Whereas if they were simply in there doing their own bits and sort of sequential interdependence, I do my bit, and then I pass it along, and the next person adds their bit. It's R&D, passes it on to production, passes it on to marketing, and then sales gets involved without mixing it up and having sales go all the way back to R&D and say, what are we seeing in the market? If they're operating in silos, the value they produce is somewhat more linear. In some cases, far more linear. In some cases, it doesn't even add up 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. Because there's all kinds of diseconomies of scale and costs associated with it. So what we want you to think about is, when and how do you bring these different complementary bases of knowledge and know-how together such that you are producing way more than any of those silos could do on their own? And innovation, of course, is a super hot topic for all of us. And again, drawing on different kinds of databases, we can show how collaboration really matters, and indeed matters more than ever. So what you're looking at is a database of inventors per patent over the last some number of decades. And that big blue, light blue blob at the bottom, that's solo inventors. Take a look at that. The proportion of people being awarded patents, or the proportion of patents awarded to just a single individual, has dropped by half over those decades. Whereas at the same time, 3-person patent teams have doubled proportionately. And all the way back in the 70s, there were hardly any 7-person patent teams getting awarded their patents. And there's been a 9-fold increase. So why is this true? Well, we know that some of it is the complexity, like we were talking about earlier. The problems we are tackling today require people from different domains. And we know, digging further into this data, the more disparate these different inventors are, the more likely they are not just to get a patent awarded, but to have a jackpot patent that gets cited innumerable times and is successful in a whole variety of ways. So it's important that they're coming together from different disciplines. And one of the other factors that we shouldn't lose sight of here, this data represents in some ways a cultural movement where, I'm guessing, don't know this, conjecture, but my strong hypothesis is, back in the mid-70s, when it looked like all of those lone geniuses were getting their patents, chances are they simply weren't giving credit to the people whose inputs were so vital. And it's something to be thinking about, all of us who are in the innovation space. How are we giving credit, whether it's naming them on a patent or whether it's in some other more day-to-day way? How are we recognizing people whose inputs truly matter to our success? It's a cultural phenomenon, and it really makes a difference. Now, some of you are probably fully bought into this idea of collaboration across silos and disciplines and geographies, but you might need to convince some people who ask the with him question. You know, with him, what's in it for me? Because sometimes people say, all right, fine, the company might benefit, or the founders, or the shareholders, the stakeholders, but what's in it for me? Because it takes time, and I've got a full-on day job. How do I think about what's in it for me when I collaborate more and better? Well, we wanted to explore that as well. Again, from an empirical lens, with the help of my research assistant, John Ng, he's brilliant in all of our millions of data records that we have collected from organizations around the planet. John was able to isolate 2 individuals. We don't know their names because all of our data is de-identified, but we know that they're both men who work in the same company at the same level of the hierarchy, in the same department, all sorts of demographic and professional similarities, so much so that we joke that they're twins. Now, do you know how to read one of these network maps? We were able to take their project utilization databases. So they record, they track how they get involved in different kinds of projects in their company. And we were able to take those databases and say, for the quote unquote twin, one of these guys, who has he collaborated with over the course of the last year? Now, every dot on here represents a senior level person, say SVP and above in their company. And the lines connecting them signify that they have worked for a material amount of time together on the same project, right? So that's a proxy for collaboration. Who's actually engaged with one another in this way? Now, I'm going to ask you a tough question. Take a deep breath. Think about this. What do you observe that's different about Twin 2's collaboration pattern? All right, well, clearly Twin 2 is collaborating with way more people. Oh, I forgot to mention they're color coded. Do you notice there's lots of different colors on these dots? Well, Twin 1 is collaborating with 3 other people in his department. They're color coded by department of the company. Whereas Twin 2 is accessing lots of different kinds of colors, therefore different kinds of experts throughout the company. And moreover, Twin 2 is choosing to work with people who themselves are highly collaborative. Now that matters. I'm going to give you the punchline, and then let's explore why this happens. The punchline, the what's in it for me question, is when we looked at the business outcomes for Twin 1 and Twin 2, we were able to isolate, based on the projects where they were the leaders, what happened. So we looked at variables like revenue growth and profitability and team health and customer satisfaction. And across that basket of indicators, take a look at this. Twin 2 was more than 4 times more generative than his very similar counterpart in the same organization. Why? Well, maybe you're like Twin 2. Maybe you've got loads and loads of connections and you're constantly pulling people in at just the right moment to collaborate with. And you're thinking about, where's the boundary of my expertise and who's somebody who can challenge me or add to it? If you're operating like Twin 2, you know the benefits of this kind of a work network. You get information and market intelligence, and you learn new jargon, you're exposed to new ideas. It sparks some creativity, it gives you access. And because Twin 2 is working with these other collaborative people, even if he doesn't know the exact right person in his company, he says, hey, I've got a question about something fairly obscure. And he rings up that dark green dot over towards the center and asks the question. The person says, hey, sorry, not my bailiwick, but I do know somebody who was talking about that, right? And bang, Twin 2 is connected to somebody else. And beyond that, he's connected to somebody he believes instantly that he can trust. Think about that. When you get a recommendation, a referral from somebody whom you've worked with extensively, you're going to trust that person. You're going to believe, because you trust the person who referred them, you're going to believe that they're going to deliver high quality, on time, on budget, or you can query that from the person who makes the referral and you trust their judgment. You're also going to believe in, to some degree, their integrity, their character. And having competence and character trust, because they're part of this same web of relationships, allows collaboration to happen not just faster, but more effectively. So if you are sitting there and you're saying, yes, I'm already twin two, I get these kinds of benefits. This is how I've built my company. That I network constantly. I have people inside and outside my organization. That's fabulous. Congratulations. And you're not off the hook, because I want you to think about how you become a broker for somebody who's less privileged than you, who doesn't have this kind of work. How do you think about taking any of your contacts and helping them build out their network? Now, remember, more is not better. Better is better. But Twin 2 has a larger network that he can activate when necessary, and he'll do so thoughtfully and deliberately. And that's what allows him to get so much power out of that network. But if you don't proactively build your network and make these connections, and you wait until you absolutely need to lean on somebody, it's too late, right? So what we're asking you to think about is how to be proactive in building your network and how to help other people to do the same. So what steps do you have that you can actually take to make smart collaboration happen, whether it's more strategically, more frequently, more consistently? Well, I want to start with this idea of maybe what you shouldn't do. So a shout out to my co-author, Mark Mortensen. He and I wrote this cover story on Harvard Business Review a couple of years ago, and the idea very much lives on. I dare say many of you are feeling more overcommitted than ever. So let's just dive in for a second. What's the problem when people get overcommitted? When we're talking about collaboration run amok, when people in an organization and ecosystem think that more is better, let's pull everyone in. And whether they're doing that for political purposes, like, hey, you were in the meeting, you had your chance to object, or whether they're simply, I'll dare say, lazy and not being deliberate about weaning people out of the distribution list, whether it's people who are in the meetings who really don't belong there, who don't raise their hand and say, hey, wait a minute, how am I supposed to contribute? There's lots of reasons that people get stretched thin, and there's a real dark side to it. For example, people get extremely task focused on just performance, and it's impossible to be compassionate with their fellow team members and so forth. Switching costs. I mean, if you run any kind of, say, manufacturing business, you understand that when you change over a line, you lose some time. Well, the same thing happens to your brain. When you're trying to do multiple things all at once, you might kid yourself that you can multitask, but there are parts of your brain that are stuck on the prior pieces, and you're not using your gray matter as effectively as you should. Those kinds of switching costs are real. And we want you to be thinking about how can you be deliberate about using your time and that of the people around you so that they can engage most effectively. A lot of people think that more opportunities are better because they're going to learn so much more. But there's certainly a tipping point, and it's far lower than you would expect it to be. If you're stretched across multiple projects at any given time, you can't engage deeply enough to truly learn, to examine mistakes, to think about taking risks and figuring out when and where collaboration is going to help. People who get stretched really thin sometimes it happens to them because they're an only. They're the only person who looks like them, who talks like them, who comes from this area in their organization, and everybody wants some of them. You know, they're the only expert on this person, on this perspective. They're the only one who knows this thing, and those people get stretched, whether it's for demographic diversity or knowledge diversity. They get stretched really thin, and oftentimes it means that they lack coaching and sponsorship because nobody really gets to know them for who they truly are and what they can contribute. There are other downsides here as well, like burnout is obvious, and cohesion really drops in teams where people are dipping in and out superficially. And the last one, you know, I told you we're all about math and science and hard data and evidence. And I want you to know that what you might think of as the soft side of collaboration, the touchy-feely benefits some have talked about, is actually supported by science as well. When people are engaging in truly smart collaboration, when they can work with people who give them a sense of purpose and meaning and do get to know them, loneliness is reduced. And I don't know if you're reading any of the research on this or not, but loneliness kills, full stop. Right? We know that loneliness is associated with lower immune response and higher heart disease and a whole bunch of physical and mental wellness outcomes. And it's no joke. right? So we want you to be thinking about how do you optimize your time as a member of a highly stretched team or as a leader of a highly stretched team. Here are some examples, and I'm going to pick just a couple examples to go through in these how-tos. I've given you the resources right here. And by the way, if you want these slides, I am delighted to share them with you. We'll find a way to get them out to you, or feel free to drop me a note and ask for them. I'd be very happy to send them. When you're leading an overcommitted team, I want you to think about two things. One is a proper team launch. This is the kind of thing where everyone says, oh, we couldn't possibly spend that time, right? We're super busy. We couldn't spend 15 minutes when we start up a new project and do a real team launch. Really? Yeah, I think that's actually an investment, not a cost. You need to bring people together, make sure everyone understands why they are on the team and what role other people are playing so that they can draw on people's expertise at exactly the right moment. And you as the leader become less of a bottleneck. It's also important to, in that kickoff session, to talk about people's development goals. You don't always want people doing precisely what they're brilliant at already. People want to be stretched. They find a lot of meaning when they can expand their capabilities. And so have the explicit conversation. What is it that you'd like to get out of this project, this initiative, this effort? Because chances are that somebody else on the team is already good at that, and peer mentoring, peer coaching is a fabulous opportunity. But people have to know about the supply and the demand in order to make that happen. So add that into your team kickoff. The other things around a team kickoff that are probably obvious, but I might say them anyway. Goals. What is it that we're all trying to do? What are we trying to accomplish together? Get everyone to articulate it in their own words. Simply parroting back what you've told them the goal is isn't the same thing as them understanding and internalizing it. So ask people to say in their own words what it is that they think the team is trying to accomplish, and then articulate how they're going to make a difference. The other thing is the roles and responsibilities, right? How is it that you're dividing this up? I'd say in the work that we do with startups, those two pieces are often overlooked because a team grows and grows and grows. You know, when it's small, you're all sitting in the same room or around the same table, it might be obvious what everyone is supposed to be doing. Nevertheless, we know that as the team grows, those people who are coming on board don't have that same sense of perspective. And therefore, it's essential that you continually refresh that. I will jump to the idea of if you are overcommitted. That probably sounds very familiar to you. I'm going to focus on the last one here. You've got to own your development. Carve out time for reflection. Again, it's the thing that's lowest on everyone's list when you're super busy, and yet it's one of the most important things you can do. So sometimes you can have an accountability partner. I tend to start in Gardner and Co. We start Mondays with a bit of a stand-up, and everyone comes in with their top 2 or 3 key priorities for the week. I think it's at least as important to do that so that each of us identify and own our priorities as it is for communicating it to other people. And you've got to figure out where is it that you're stagnating, and how is it that deeper engagement in some of the projects you're already on will make you more effective, not just in producing those outcomes, but make you effective in the long term. All right, so last thing we're going to talk about is smarter collaboration with external partners. This, of course, is collaboration that's all the rage these days because boundaries are so much more fluid than they used to be. I mean, the days of joining an organization and staying forever, I mean, those went out quite a long time ago. I started my first job out of university with Procter & Gamble, and it was astonishing to me. Some of the people on the sales team I was leading had been in Procter & Gamble longer than I had been alive. Right? It was astonishing. Those people stuck around, bless them, but those kinds of jobs really don't exist. People are coming and going and returning. And that's what we want to be thinking about for you. How do you activate this broader ecosystem and think about your external partnership? Well, it really starts with what is it that we are trying to accomplish? What does success look like? What's not just the gold standard, but platinum standard? How are we going to define and measure that? And then find the right partner. I don't just mean strategically the right partner. I mean culturally the right partner. Sussing out who is going to interact with you as an organization and as leaders in the way that you expect, having those conversations, they might feel a little awkward up front, but doing your cultural due diligence when you're trying to select a partner is absolutely essential. And it will save you time down the road. And you know what? If somebody runs away screaming, they say, that's not for me, I don't feel like engaging in this conversation. Guess what? You have just saved yourself a world of pain, because that's not somebody that you ought to be collaborating with as an external partner. So once you've got the partner, getting your company on board is essential. All too often, we see something between ambivalence and resistance in organizations that are trying to partner with outsiders. Why? Well, people either don't understand, shouldn't we be building that capability ourselves? Can't we do this better on our own? Or even worse, isn't that going to undermine my value in our organization? Again, when you can define success and what it really looks like for all parties, you've got to be able to communicate that across your organization so that people feel enthusiastic and certainly not threatened by an external partnership. And ask you to think about regularly reassessing the partnership. In that early due diligence conversation, make it clear that that's what you're doing and that you expect your external partners to be doing the same thing as well. The worst partnerships are the ones that go stale and flat and nobody calls it out, and they're kind of just ticking along, barely alive, and nobody steps in to either rejuvenate them or get out. And that's not smart collaboration. You've got to continually rejuvenate. What is it that we're trying to do? Are we better together than we would be on our own? And early on, you're going to think about how you can part amicably if the time comes. This applies to customers, suppliers, company alumni. Quick question. Are you engaging with your employees right now such that if they left, they would still be a friend of your company? And even more so, would be interested in returning. You know, boomerangs, that's the term that a lot of companies are using these days for somebody who was an employee who then leaves and comes back again. That is absolutely essential for you to make sure you're doing everything you can when they first join, to talk about how their skills are developing, and to make sure if they choose to leave for whatever reason, they're not seen as, you know, kind of the enemy, one of them, but they're still one of you. They just happen to be working for somebody else right now. Right? And even if they go to work at a competitor, keep in touch and stay on good terms, because they could come back to you with a world of knowledge and information and experience that's incredibly valuable to you. Again, thinking about how do you refresh those relationships and those partnerships. Alumni are hugely important. And I put competitors on this list, believe it or not. Yes, there are times when you want to team up with rivals, and that makes all the sense in the world. I'll wrap up now with this Ocean X. We're talking about external partnerships, and this one is just too fun not to mention. Ocean X, very serious deep sea exploration with some of the world's best oceanographers, et cetera, et cetera. They teamed up with Crayola. I mean, who doesn't love Crayola? Burnt umber, right? I mean, it's like fabulous. And Ocean X was clear about what they're trying to do. They want to bring this knowledge back to us on land to say, how can we get people excited about saving the planet, saving the oceans, doing more? Well, who better to get excited than kids? And what better to get them excited with than crayons? So you have these two wildly different companies, organizations, Ocean X and Crayola, teaming up in you know, kind of unheard of partnership to bring the wonders of the ocean to the next generation. That's really thinking out of the box. And I love that idea. I'm going to wrap it up there, Glenn. And if we've got questions, I'm happy to take them. Or if you've got questions, happy to take those as well.
Thank you, Heidi. I wish we had another hour. That was unbelievable, just unbelievable. Well, first off, thank you for validating that my goal in life, try to be like twin number two, is the right instinct. Because I spent most of my life, career, otherwise, nurturing relationships, honoring them, checking with people, and always trying to do more giving than receiving, right? As a very important piece. I love the Crayola piece. I've actually been to the Crayola Crayon Store Museum in Kansas City, and they have a pretty good restaurant. Pretty good restaurant too.
I'll take that.
As you go through, you know, from a holistic standpoint, just, I mean, with teamwork and getting the best and most out of people, getting people out of their comfort zone, so important. Great tip. Stretching them out. Team launch meetings. how can anybody not do that for a project? That is so important. What's the rules of the road? How are you going to have check-ins? All incredibly important. All incredibly
Absolutely.
important.
I will say one of my mentors, the late Dr. Richard Hackman, he was working in across U.S. government agencies in the wake of the 9/11 Commission, trying to get FBI and NSA and all of these different government agencies to share information better so they could protect our country. And he ran some of these red team, blue team experiments where, days on end, you had people running these counterterrorism simulations. And he found that teams that did a proper team launch were up to 30% more effective. It was incredible uplift, and yet it's one of those secret weapons that a lot of people just don't take time for.
Yeah, sometimes we miss the obvious, right? For sure. Well, listen, just wonderful. So Smarter Collaboration, it's available for pre-order.
It is.
Okay, and it'll be out shortly, right?
Absolutely. So it's available for pre-order now on all the usual places, and you can get your hands on it in just a few short months.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Great conversation, great presentation. Really appreciate all your efforts, and thanks for joining Leading Entrepreneurs of the World this time. Take care. See you next time. Bye.